We are 52 days away from Tennessee football, and that's one less day than 53 days. The Volatile Podcast is your weekly reminder that being a Vols fan is a terminal diagnosis that we all share. I'm Mac Williams, and I'm joined by my good buddies Jeff Wright and Nick Duncan. Jeff, how we doing tonight, man? Let's go. Wait, Nick, you hate fitted hats? When did this become a thing?
I've never liked fitted hats.
Ever?
No, I mean, I've had some, but every time I've ever tried to wear one, I've not enjoyed it. I've just almost always worn snapbacks my whole life.
Dude, that is
I don't make a big deal out of it. Jeff and I just happened to be hat shopping in the same place, and a hat was proposed to me that was fitted, and I said, "Oh, I hate fitted hats." So
that's crazy. I never would have guessed that. I have so many MLB fitted hats; it's unbelievable. I like I like hats, so I like anything. But I just never knew that opinion that you had.
yeah, I mean, it's just a personal thing. I don't like hate them in principle. I just don't like the way they feel.
All right, man, you can chill out. You don't need to get all worked up about it. Okay.
Okay, man, I'll calm down.
Okay.
Jeff just ninja vanished.
He did ninja vanish. Anyways, we are going to jump into some latest news here, other than Nick hating fitted hats. Latest news here with who? Not me. I didn't ask you how you were doing, Nick. Now, how are you doing?
Oh man, we're having vacation Bible school at my church this week, so I am very tired. I'm mustering up all of the energy left for this podcast. So
Yeah. We did ours in early June, so we kind of got that out of the way. But we were here, so I don't remember. But yeah. Anyways, football news. We have SEC Media Days starting on Monday, July 20th. That's this coming Monday. The question here, I'm hoping Jeff can jump back on. The question here was, does SEC Media Days mean anything to you?
what it means for me is that football is starting. I see it as like there's nothing about media days particularly that gets me like very excited, except for the fact that just that they're happening. Because they happen mid-July, it just means to me that football is upon us. You know, you're about a month away from the first game, like the week 0 games when you hit media days. So
Yeah, no, it definitely does feel like, football's coming soon,
yeah, it's
is
like
what I would say.
fall camps are about to start. And it's just like he vanished, he just came right back. There he is. So Jeff Mack was proposing a question. What does SEC Media Days mean anything to you? And my take is, in substance, no. But I do always get excited to see them come because I see it as like the very first thing for the season. So it's like fall camps start shortly thereafter, and by the time Media Days ends, you're about a month away from week 0 and the first college football games. So.
Yeah, it's a smart take. No, it doesn't mean anything to me. I don't think you really get anything out of it. I'm kind of hoping Lane Kiffin and what's the Ole Miss coach's name? Help me out.
Oh, gosh. He was the defensive coordinator at Alabama, Pete Golden.
I hope those guys cross paths in front of a camera at some point. But I only care about it as a placeholder like you're talking about. I would like to go. I think it'd be really fun to go to the beach when they're having it in Florida and like see the spectacle, because all the like Josh Pates of the world are probably there. That would be fun to observe, but I don't care about it for like.
Max offended that you use Josh Pate's name in the plural, like there's more than one.
I am offended.
That's fair.
I'm offended. I'm so offended that I'm going to start only wearing fitted hats in front of Nick now. That's how offended I am.
That will not bother me at all.
It will. Actually. It will bother you. I'll do it so much it'll bother you.
Okay. As long as you don't try to put it on my head, we're fine.
You couldn't fit my hat on your head, son. I'm a skinny little 7 1/8, 7 1/4. You probably wear like a 7 5/8. That's probably why I don't like fitted hats. Your head's so freaking big.
My head's not big, actually. I wear smaller size hats as well. I just don't like them.
Dude, they look so good.
It doesn't have to be a thing, guys. It doesn't have to be a thing.
We didn't make
It's
it a thing.
become a
You made
thing.
it a thing.
Listener, you judge if I've made this a thing.
Oh my gosh. Anyways, yeah, I mean SEC media days. I remember in college really being excited to watch them, just because you got to see your coach talk about the season, and I don't know, it just felt more like you were going to get something out of it. Like it felt like there was going to be some news or some information.
It
that you
used
looked
to be
forward
more
hearing.
meaningful than I think in the social media world. Like everything's so guarded. You already know so much because of social media, and everybody's just doing coach speak unless it's like the Lane Kiffins of the world, like Jeff's saying. Like you just hope that the most, no pun intended, volatile guy in the room just pops off and says something so you've got something interesting to read about.
Yeah, they would probably be more fun if Mike Gundy was in the SEC. But it's almost that whole like approach to being a public figure as a coach is just gone. We just don't do that anymore.
Like as much as we hated him, Steve Spurrier was an absolute gas at media days
Yeah.
when we were younger. So
yeah. No, that's a good point though about Pete Golding and Lane Kiffin though, Jeff. I mean, hopefully there'll be some drama there. But yeah, I mean, I think that's all of it. I think it's exciting because it means we're one step closer to the season, but there's not that much to be gained. And I mean, honestly, I'm kind of looking forward to hearing from Jeremiah Telander. I was glad that he's going to be one of the guys representing us, just because I like him a lot. So I think I'll be excited to hear from him, Arion Carter, Deshaun Bishop. Those are the three guys. So I think they'll be cool and good representation of the team. So I'm more excited to hear them than I am Heupel, honestly. But.
Well, Heupel is like he's horrible. I mean, like it's just like watching cardboard. I mean, I love the guy, but good grief, he's king of coach speak.
And the Tennessee will be there, just so the listeners know, and so you guys know. Tennessee will be there Monday, and that's when Heupel and the players and everyone will do their interviews and everything. So we're there the first day, and we get it done. So that'll kind of be nice just to get in there and get it done and get to hear the sound bites and see what we think. So we'll talk about that next week, I'm sure, depending on what's said. Other latest news for football. David Gabriel Georges is committing in exactly 1 week, July 22nd at 4:30 p.m. God's time. So, 4:30 p.m. here in the Mid-State for DGG. I honestly think he's going to commit to Tennessee. What do you guys think?
I agree.
Yeah, I have no counter argument. I mean, I get why people are like, Ohio State has a better running back tradition in recent years, but he's working out with Kamara. He's posting stuff that seems cryptic on his social media. I just think he's ours. And I'm assuming that the reason he's ours is that Tennessee went a little bit further than Ohio State in we will pay whatever it takes to keep a generational talent from our state leaving. You know, I'm assuming he could have wrote they probably handed him the equivalent of a blank check.
Yep. Which is the right thing to do, right? Sure. I mean, we're all in agreement in today's climate. That's what they should have done.
Yep. It sucks, but it's what you got to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you're taking money to, what's the word, preserve Neyland Field? Sorry.
Correct.
If you're taking money to preserve Neyland Field, you better put that money to stuff like this.
Sorry, Neyland Stadium or Shields Watkins Fields? What are we talking about?
It was the same question I was about to ask.
What did I say? Neyland Field?
Yeah, it was really cringy. I'm not going to lie to you about it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Somebody went out the door and distracted me, and that's what I'm going to blame it on.
Listeners, we apologize.
We apologize for Jeff's malfeasance here on the podcast.
That's Vol profanity right there.
Sorry.
At least you pronounce his name right. I would have thought someone was trying to kill you if you would have said Neyland Field. I would have been like, he's giving us code because someone's in his home trying to murder him.
This is a distress. It's a call for help.
No, it's really as simple as I can't do more than one thing, which involves looking at a door while talking.
Oh gosh. Anyways, no basketball news really.
It's because that fitted hat squeezing your head so tight.
Ah, it's
Oh, ah.
no basketball news really. The guys are practicing. I've heard that obviously the team looks good. I mean, you don't really hear too much this time of year. We'll see. Baseball news, kind of a big week in the baseball world. The MLB draft came and went, and we had 6 Vols drafted in the Major League Baseball draft. The first guy off the board for the Vols was Tegan Coons, which is not really surprising, at the 32nd pick overall, which is the first round. So the Major League Baseball draft is really weird. I don't even fully completely understand it. There's 30 teams, but the 32nd pick was also in the first round. So I don't really get that. But hey, anyways, he went to the St. Louis Cardinals, if I didn't say that. And then there was a huge gap between Tegan and our next guy that was drafted. Henry Ford was taken in the 6th round to the Seattle Mariners. Bo Rudy was in the 7th to the Philadelphia Phillies. Garrett Wright was in the 8th to the Los Angeles Angels. Brandon Arvidsson was in the 12th round to the Chicago Cubs. And Evan Blanco was in the 13th round to the Athletics, who no longer have a city.
That's true.
Yep. Tegan, Henry Ford, Bo Rudy, Garrett Wright, Brandon Arvidsson, Evan Blanco, 6 guys. Does anything surprise you or stand out from these guys getting drafted? Any fits you like, any you don't like? Anything to say about that? Nick, you go ahead.
At first glance, it kind of shocked me that Bo Rudy went as high as 7th, but I mean, just based on talent, I mean, he's got the talent to be a major league pitcher. So, swirling back around, it's not as shocking as I think it was. I think it's just my Vol bias. I was like, why the heck would someone take Bo Rudy in the 7th round? Other than that, I mean, I wasn't incredibly shocked. Maybe thought Blanco would have went a little sooner than 13th, but he also went to the only team on this list that's tolerable to me. I mean, I guess the Mariners are tolerable, but Bo Rudy's kind of dead to me now because he plays for the Phillies.
You have a hatred for the Angels or a disdain for the Angels of some kind?
No, not really. I guess them as well.
I kind of like the Angels because they've got our
Mike
boy.
Trout?
Well, no, they've got our boy. I'm blanking on his name right now.
Is it Christian Moore?
Christian Moore.
Well, I was going to say Christian Moore, but that's not what I'm thinking of. It's the guy that throws like 105. Blonde haired dude.
Nolan Ryan.
No, they did have him back in the day.
No, gosh. What is his name?
He has a brother, too. I can't think of his name. I can see his face, but I can't think of his name. Anyways,
Reputation is the best Vols baseball
podcast. I know. It'll hit me like halfway through the show, and then I'll be like, oh, yeah, here's his name.
Yeah, just blurt it when it comes.
I will. Anyways, there's a couple of Vols in the Angels is my point. And so I've kind of like casually been following them over the years. The bigger point that I was going to list this guy and then go to Christian Moore, which is the bigger point, and Christian Moore's on the Angels. So obviously I like him a lot, and we all do. So I feel like on this list, like I legitimately think that Evan Blanco has maybe – just because of the Athletics and like how they run their franchise, like I feel like he may have a really great opportunity to get serious playing time before a lot of the guys that were drafted ahead of him from our team. And so I'm interested to see that. Obviously, Tegan Coons in the first round, like that's not surprising. He was kind of projected in the 20s though, so I think he fell a little bit. I was bummed to see him go to the Cardinals because that's on this list. That's the team I hate most.
Horrible.
But kudos to him.
Definitely the Phillies. Bo Rudy doesn't exist anymore.
That's true. You do hate the Phillies. So, anyways, listener, we're really excited to bring you this next segment for our kind of Tennessee segment tonight. We are doing an all-time Vols fantasy draft. So how this is going to work for the listener and for Jeff is that we are going to draft a quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, and a defense. So the defense is you're taking the entire, starting defense, and you're just going to pick a year of Tennessee's defense. So all the other positions are obviously self-explanatory. You're going to pick a singular guy. So that's 7 draft picks that you'll have. So we'll go 7 rounds, snake draft, just like last time that we did a draft. You've got to fill a player each position. And Yeah, that's pretty much it. The draft order is going to be Nick and then Jeff and then myself. Do we have any questions about this, guys, before we start?
Let's see, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7. I don't think so. My question is, are you keeping up with what we have drafted?
Yes, I will keep up with it. I'm going to write it down as we go. And then, Jeff, were you able to put together the AI evaluator for this?
I think I can do it fairly easy, so I'm
Okay.
going to try it when we get done.
Cool. So what we're going to do, listener, is we will have Jeff run these through AI between now and next week, and we're going to see which roster, based on the stats of when they were a player, based on their abilities in college, yada yada yada, which roster would win if these two teams were to play a simulated game against each other, and we'll see who has the best team when it's all said and done. All right. So Nick, you are the first pick of the first round. So go ahead, man.
With the first pick in the July 15th, 2026 Volatile Podcast all-time Vols team, the Fighting Nick Duncan's take, Peyton Manning.
Shocker.
Yeah, I would have been shocked if he wasn't the first pick. So good job.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. There's already a run on QBs though, because like once you get into the QB list, you run out of modern quarterbacks.
But Jeff, this is what's crazy, and this is why I quit fantasy football. All the kids now draft quarterbacks in the first round. It's crazy. Back in the day, you drafted running backs, you drafted receivers, you drafted tight ends before you drafted quarterbacks.
Every other skill position you drafted before you went to a quarterback.
Which I guess it's because quarterbacks now you run so much just across the board that they also score touchdowns now, not just hand the ball off. Like they're running for touchdowns, they're passing for touchdowns. So I think that's why, but it's crazy. So
that's a commissioner failure actually, because if your commissioner's paying attention to the way he sets up the scoring, every category of player at the top end should compete with each other. But this segment of We're Old can now come to an end. So I'm going to take Hendon Hooker because I've got to have a modern quarterback.
Wow, that is. I'm shocked, frankly. That I'm shocked that he came off the board at all. I'll be honest.
Dude, you can't go to anybody who's comparable to the modern game. Heath Schuler might have been as talented, but he handed the ball off a ton. So, if you're playing a game today, you got to have Hendon.
Wow.
He was going to be my pick if I wasn't able to get Peyton.
Boys, he's not even on my short list, even though I love Hendon Hooker. That's crazy.
The short list from the short bus.
Well, you don't even have to worry about a quarterback now.
I don't. That's gonna be my last pick
Give
now.
Jamal the ball.
Yeah. So with my first pick, I'm gonna go ahead and take Jamal Lewis at running back. So that's my first pick, Jamal Lewis. I get back-to-back picks since we're snaking.
Yep.
And so I'm gonna follow Jamal up. Gosh, this is where it gets tough. I'm gonna go ahead and take the guy I think that's head and shoulders better than the rest of his list, which is Jason Witten.
Great call, dude. I was thinking if you don't take Jason Witten, it's a crime because the drop-off's massive.
Yep. All right, Jeff, you're back up, man.
We're running no what's it called? 12 formation. We're not running that. And,
no.
I'm Jeff's team.
No 12 personnel on your team?
No 12 personnel. So I'm going to take the 98 defense. I want Al Wilson at peak powers.
Hang on just a second. Let me write this down before you go, Nick. That's a great pick. I think that's the best defense. Although statistically there is a better one, and I'm not going to tell you which one. But
99 and 2000 are very comparable. You've got a lot of the same personnel. 97 was pretty close too. Like you can take any one of those and get in the ballpark.
Mm-hmm. All right, Nick, you're up, man.
I will take. I'm going to go wide receiver.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go, golly, I've been debating this like all day. I'm going to take Carl Pickens.
Okay.
And I go again, yes?
Yes, you go back to back.
I will take Travis Henry for a running back.
All right, Nick. All right.
Give me the cheese.
Dang.
All right, Jeff, you're back.
You don't just get him, but you get like 1 million kids to add in the pipeline to recruit later. I'm going to take Joey Kent.
I think that was the best wide receiver on the board, in my opinion.
Yeah, I debated between.
I was going to do Henry and then Joey Kent. That was my 1-2 on my cheat sheet here.
All right, I'm back up with 2 picks here. You guys have done a good job spacing it out. Okay. I'm going to take a running back and a receiver. I'm just figuring out which order I want to go in here.
Dang it.
I'm going to go ahead and take I'm going to take a receiver next. I'm going to go with Marcus Nash.
It's a good pick.
Marcus Nash from our receiver. Do I want to go back-to-back receivers?
Yeah,
there's so many good receivers. There's also so many good running backs.
Right. Those are the 2 deepest positions.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. I guess running back is hard. I'm gonna go with Arian Foster.
We are killing Jeff's soul with our running back picks.
For real. And we're taking career, not one great season, right?
Yeah, you're just taking the totality of the guy's career at Tennessee. NFL cannot be factored in.
So you want to leave Alvin Kamara off the board?
Yeah. So I'm going to take James Stewart.
Okay, it's me, back-to-back picks.
It's you, back-to-back picks, sir.
I'm going to take Johnny Majors as a running back.
So about that modern football thing.
Heisman runner-up. He's a legend. I'm going to take Peerless Price as a wide receiver.
Good choice. All right, Jeff, you're back up, man.
Well, I got to have, man.
You got. So do you need me to update you on what you have?
Well, I know that I've got one of the except tight end. So
you still need a running back, still need a receiver, still need a tight end.
I'm going to take Jalen Hyatt.
That's a good pick, dude.
All right. I'm going back-to-back here. I'm going to take a receiver and a defense. I'm going to start with defense. I'm going to take – see, this is what – so I'll tell you the 2 on between because I don't – Jeff's already got one, so Nick's going to get probably one of these 2. The 2 on between are the 1939 team, which is the team that did not give up any points in the regular season. The issue, obviously, is I don't know how AI is going to grade this. I don't even know how I would grade this because this team didn't defend the pass at all. So that kind of makes me feel like they almost don't count, but statistically, they are the best defense in Tennessee history.
I think you should take them and just challenge AI. Just stare it down. Make it make you do. Make it make you do what you want it to. Easy for me to say.
The other option, Jeff, you're going to love this. I think is the 2024 Tim Banks defense.
I know.
That defense was insane, and it was in the modern era. So I'm really struggling between these 2. I think I'm gonna let Nick continue his trend of taking the old teams. I'm gonna take the 2024 Tim Banks team. So that's my defense.
So you think I'm going to take 39?
There's only, other than 39, there's only one more option I have on my list. So I would be shocked if you don't take 39 or this other team I'm not going to mention.
Well, I'll just tell you, I did not statistically research defenses. I'm just going off of what I remember.
What you remember, yeah. Okay. I only did statistics. Of course, like the 24 team was on my list very quickly, but 98 and 24 were like off the dome. And then I was like, what other defenses are really good? And then that's when I got these other 2 that we haven't mentioned yet. Okay, for my last pick, not my last pick overall, but my second to last pick, I'm taking at receiver. I'm going to take Cedric Wilson.
Good pick.
All right, Jeff, you're back up.
Okay, I need a running back and a tight end, right?
That's right.
I think I'm going to take. Man, this is tough. I guess I'm going to go old school. I'll take Jay Graham to be my running back.
Nice choice. Okay, we all have all the running backs, right? Before you take your next pick, Nick, your last pick, you have your last two picks. What other running backs? So here's who's been drafted: James Stewart, Jay Graham, Jamal Lewis, Arian Foster, Travis Henry, Johnny Majors. What other running backs came to mind for you guys that weren't taken?
Travis Stevens.
Yeah, same. I had a couple more too. Jeff,
Ontario Hardesty.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That was one of mine.
I thought for the coolness of it to take Cobb and Webb and just kind of put that back in. There's a guy named Johnny Jones from the early 80s who was like one of the first 1,000-yard rushers. And I think Dylan Sampson belongs
I was about to say,
list.
Dylan Sampson's got to be on the list.
Dylan Sampson is statistically the best running back left on the board. And he technically was he's neck and neck with Arian Foster in terms of statistics. So it was hard for me to decide which one, but yeah, and then receivers, I think we got all the best ones, to be honest. We have Joey Kent, Jalen Hyatt, Marcus Nash, Cedric Wilson, Carl Pickens, Peerless Price. That's across the board, all six of our receivers. The only other guys I had on my list were Robert Meacham, Jawan Jennings. I flirted with Denarius Moore too, but I don't know. I feel like we got the best six though of those. So, all right, Nick, you're up. You need a tight end and a defense. The last two picks.
I'll just take the 99 defense.
Okay.
See, I think that's pretty good. That was Deion Grant's good year, and if we are playing by modern rules, it'd be really nice to have a dope safety or a corner, depending on what you do with him.
Does anyone want to guess the statistically best defense other than the 39 team I already mentioned? Does anyone want to guess the other statistically best defense that's left out there?
Other than 39 and 24? Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Golly. Who knows? A whole era of football. I'm going to guess, for my guess, I'll say 07.
Nope.
I'm going to guess 2000 because you've got, I think, John Henderson and Albert Hainsworth at the top of their game at that point.
It's a good choice. Statistically, the best defense left was the 1967 Doug Dickey defense. So, yep. Yep. All right. Nick, last pick. You need a tight end.
Yes. This is such a drop off, bro. I don't. This is like, am I taking like Luke Stalker? Maybe who am I taking here?
He's on my short list.
He is on the short list. I'll go. I'm just going to take Reggie Harper just because he's like the only other guy I know that's like played 4 years and like caught a lot. He had like a ton of receiving yards. I think, not in the ballpark. He caught a lot of footballs. I'll just take Reggie Harper.
Nope. I think that's the best one left. And then I think there's one more that's pretty good that Jeff will probably get. All right. So that's Nick's team. I'll run through them here in just a minute. Jeff, it's your last pick. You need a tight end.
Yeah, I'm going to take Michael Rivera.
Yep, that was the other one.
Good pick.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't believe Ethan Wolf didn't get any love. I thought Wolf had a pretty good chance. It ain't deep, boys. It ain't deep.
No,
Luke Stalker's better than Ethan Wolf.
I think so. But I think Ethan Wolf's
Are you saying he's a better player or a better producer?
He was better at Tennessee as a football player.
I think as a Tennessee tight end, he was better.
So Wolf is fourth in receiving yards, and was a multi-year starter. He has 67 catches. I think he goes under the radar. And if I'm trying to convince AI to give my team the win, his stats look pretty nice.
Which we know you will.
I actually personally don't think he's under the radar. He would be fifth on my list. I think it's just a huge drop off from like Jason Witten and everybody else. But
yeah, that's true.
I think he's up there. I think Luke Stalker was like I mean, other than like assume Jason Witten doesn't exist, maybe like the best blocking tight end. I mean, the dude just didn't miss blocks. So
Yep, that's true. All right, for my last pick, I'm taking a quarterback. I'll tell you who's on my list. Hendon Hooker was not on my list, by the way. I'm not saying it's a bad pick. I think that there's merit in it based on this, like the style of football for sure. My list is Casey Clausen, Condrich Holloway,
Shocker.
and Heath Schuler. Those are the three. I
Tyler
really
Bray.
don't. I honestly, like, if you were taking the best talent, I think it's Condrich Holloway.
Yeah.
But his era of football is what makes this a difficult choice. I think I'm going to skip Condrich for this one.
We all know who you're taking. You can talk all the way through it, but
Heath Schuler was the Heisman runner-up, which I'd forgotten that until I reviewed this. He was the Heisman runner-up, and also dual threat. Really good. Casey Clausen is my first love, my favorite Vol of all time. Gosh, I'm kind of between a rock and a hard place here because it's like Casey Clausen is statistically the better quarterback, but is AI going to like him more than they'll like Heath Schuler?
I think AI might like Tyler Bray better than.
Yeah, you know what? Maybe I'll just take Jared Garantano. Who knows?
Yeah, you should. You should.
I'm
wondering why Quentin Dormady hasn't popped up yet.
Yeah, seriously.
Hey, look, Crompton is sitting there, just waiting to be taken.
I'm gonna go with Heath Schuler.
I'm
you
shocked.
said James. You said James.
I am incredibly shocked right now.
I went with
when we started doing this, and I saw that you were the last pick. I was like, "There's no chance this man doesn't take Casey Clausen."
Yeah, I went with the head, not the heart. I'm going with the guy who's probably the better all around quarterback, but I do think Casey Clausen had a better career at Tennessee. I will say. Okay, so let me run through our rosters, and then I think we should, since we have three of us here, we should vote on who we think has the best overall roster, and then next week we'll consult AI and see who objectively wins according to that. So we'll start with Jeff. Jeff, your roster at quarterback is Hendon Hooker. At running back, you have James Stewart and Jay Graham. At wide receiver, you have Joey Kent and Jalen Hyatt. At tight end, Michael Rivera and the 1998 defense. I had at quarterback Heath Schuler. At running back, Jamal Lewis and Arian Foster. At wide receiver, Marcus Nash and Cedric Wilson. At tight end, Jason Witten. And at defense, the 2024 Tim Banks defense. Nick, your roster looks like at quarterback, Peyton Manning. At running back, you have Travis Henry and Johnny Majors. At wide receiver, you have Carl Pickens and Peerless Price. At tight end, you have Reggie Harper. Is that right? Reggie Harper? Yeah. And then at defense, you have the 1999 Tennessee defense. So, fellas, hearing those three, who do you like? Whose roster's got the best?
I like mine.
I like mine too until I hear all your rosters and think you've got Peyton Manning. You have Jamal Lewis and Arian Foster. Like, I don't know, man.
I think I definitely won running back and tight end, obviously. I mean, I think I won running back and tight end. Nick obviously won quarterback. Receivers, I think it's pretty even across the board.
Jeff, wide receiver, lots of picks.
Jeff's is good. You've got the fastest wide receivers, Jeff, with Joey Kent and Jalen Hyatt.
Modern offense, buddy. We're throwing the ball around.
Yeah. Nick and mine are pretty comparable, I think, in terms of how good they are. Obviously, I wasn't tied in. And then defense, I mean, mine feels like the weakest to me just because, like, the 98, 99 teams were so good and the 2014, wasn't. But that defense was so good. So, I don't know. I guess if I ask y'all. Yeah, go ahead.
How should I structure that? So if Joe had been here, it's easy to do like an opening round and then a championship round. But since Joe's letting us all down by not being here, what's the right way to structure the games that they're supposed to play?
You do a round robin? It could still end up even, though, couldn't it?
Actually, I can't think through how a round robin would work.
A plays B, A plays C, B plays C.
And if somebody has a better record, if it'll produce scores, we could just go with score differential as a tiebreaker.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I trust you. I mean, just whatever. I mean, if it comes out and you win, though, I'm definitely gonna have questions. But
Yeah.
I
Brock,
trust you.
create a narrative of how my team would win a round robin style tournament.
Oh, jeez.
What input should I give you to make sure that this team beats these other two teams in this round robin tournament?
No,
Oh, goodness
Peyton Manning
gracious.
has to get hurt terribly on the first drive.
So Nick, I'm curious. Like Johnny Majors, like obviously historical figure, like great all time. Like Johnny Majors was a better coach than he was a player, though. Like why Johnny Majors at running back? Because I feel like Dylan Sampson's a better running back.
He's a 1956 Heisman runner-up.
Yeah,
He was the SEC Player of the Year.
Max, yeah, right there was really well delivered.
thanks.
Remember when it mattered that Heath Schuler was a Heisman runner-up, but now that Johnny Majors was, it's like, yeah.
But dude, Heath Schuler's like a top 3 quarterback all time at Tennessee. Johnny Major's not a top 3 running back at Tennessee.
What other Tennessee running back is a Heisman runner-up?
I don't put that much stock in the Heisman, though. That was a data point that's
I'm
useful.
glad
I'm
you
not saying
mentioned
it's
it
not
earlier
useful.
then.
Oh my gosh. I'm just saying it's a data point, but it's not more important than like their actual abilities and their actual careers.
I think he's one of the best running backs that ever played at Tennessee.
You think he's top 5?
Yes.
No way, dude. Jamal Lewis, Arian Foster, Travis Henry, Jay Graham. That's 4 off top of my head.
I think you take everybody in their time. That's why it's you take everybody in their time.
So Condridge Holloway moves up the board.
Yeah, if it's everybody in their time,
I think so.
He might be the best, other than Peyton Manning.
Condridge Holloway would have been way up my list on picking a quarterback.
Yeah, he was pretty high on my list.
He was top 4 in mine.
Yeah.
All right.
For me, it was Peyton, Hendon, and Condridge.
Wow.
But then my 4 is Tyler Bray because he just threw the ball all over the field.
Dude, just all over the place.
Seriously?
And sometimes beer bottles.
Oh my gosh. Wait, so if Tyler Bray's your 4, then that means you didn't have Peyton Manning, Heath Schuler, Casey Clausen.
I didn't have Heath
Condridge
Schuler.
Holloway.
I mean, Heath Schuler was on my list. Casey was way down because he's probably, of the great Tennessee quarterbacks, he's probably the least physically gifted.
Yeah.
And Heath Schuler's problem is up here. You know, that's where
Hey.
if you could meld Heath and Casey, you would have a god tier quarterback because it would be incredible smarts and incredible physical giftedness. But you, as God chose for it to happen, you kind of have one half of an incredible quarterback.
Yeah. The Iceman, though.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, I love him.
I love him. And I mean, I love him probably more because he wasn't as physically gifted. Like,
sure.
Nobody wanted him throwing an out to the sideline, but he just figured out how to move the ball down the field.
Yeah. Well, listener, I hope you had fun hearing that. We had a good time doing it. We'll let you know who wins next week. Definitely comment below on the channel and let us know who you think had the best roster. We're going to move on to questions on college football. Tonight, we're doing the GOATS edition. So this isn't GOATS in terms of like the greatest of all time at positions or anything like that. I'm going to ask some general kind of
like
college.
Michael Jordan.
Right. I'm going to ask some general college football questions, and I don't want to structure this too much, but if you guys are going to give an answer that's specific to your experience and or Tennessee, I would also, just for fun, like to hear a more like objective answer to what you think. So just food for thought there. So the first question tonight is, what's the greatest college football game that you've ever watched? Greatest college football game you've ever watched. If you guys need a second, I'll go first. But if you got it, go ahead.
And I got it. That's live or in person. I mean, TV or in person.
Yeah, it's up to answerer's discretion.
Sure.
Nick?
2006 Rose Bowl.
It was in my top 2.
That's the same for me.
Number one is a personal one. And so I would have given the '06 Rose Bowl, which is the 2005 national championship game. I would have given that number one objectively. But because I was at the 2022 Tennessee Bama game, that would be the best football game I've ever watched, just because I was there in person. Obviously, everyone knows all the details that went into that, how big of a win it was. But obviously, the Rose Bowl being a national championship game objectively outweighs that 2022 Bama game.
Yeah, I mean, personally, just watching Tennessee beat Florida State to win a national title is above that for me.
Yeah.
The Tennessee-Florida game I talked about a couple episodes ago is above that for me too.
04? Was that 04 you said? Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Nick, what if you were going personal, what would it be the 98 national championship game for you?
Probably. Yeah.
Okay. The next question is, who is the greatest college football player that you've ever watched?
Who's up?
Jeff, you know it?
Yeah, it's related. Vince Young. Vince Young, when I watched Cam Newton play in the NFL, I was like, Cam makes this game look easy. Vince looked like he was on a different level in college. They were similar. Like Cam Newton as a pro versus Vince Young as a college player. I thought were just, it's just hard to describe how far and away above their competition they were.
Yeah. Nick?
I thought this in real time while I watched him, and I still think, I don't know if this is like childhood, whatever, but I just thought Michael Vick was the greatest player I'd ever watched play college football.
Yeah.
That is a great pick, dude, because I mean, people say like you'd never seen anything like that at that point. You've still never seen anything like that.
Mm-hmm. It was like, I don't know, man. It was like superhuman. It was otherworldly.
I mean, it's uncomparable.
It was like watching King Griffey swing the bat, like King Griffey Jr.
Thank you for the specificity there.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to do a Neyland Field or anything.
Even I know Griffey's swing is like Ray Allen's jump shot. But, in my head, Michael Vick is one hand palming the ball while he's just running away from everybody.
Dude, it was unbelievable, dude.
Yeah.
And then he flicks his wrist and it's 80 yards down the field.
It was like, I just wish that he was playing football like now. And like, would he be better than Pat Mahomes? Like, I don't know, man.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
Pat Mahomes. Well, I mean, I guess college. Like I don't.
Yeah.
But Lamar Jackson would be like a great value version of him on his best day.
Yeah. So my answer is Cam Newton. I'm a little bit younger than you guys, so like Michael Vick to me is an Atlanta Falcon. Like I know he played at Virginia Tech, but like I was a little too young to really enjoy his college career. So Cam Newton was that for me. The other guys that we didn't mention that I think are worth a mention that could be the answer would be Reggie Bush, obviously, which is comparable to Vince Young. I think quarterback outweighs running back, so it's kind of hard to name a running back. But Reggie Bush is probably in college alone one of the best running backs ever. And then also a more recent guy that I thought was worthy of being mentioned would be Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow's college career was insane, and his year at LSU was incredible. I think the biggest thing for Joe Burrow is that he only really had one good year.
1 year.
Yeah. But you could say the same thing about Cam Newton, though.
I was just about to ask.
Well,
that's why I went with Cam as a pro versus a college player.
Yeah. See, if I was picking in that era, like if I was your age, Mac, and I was picking in that era, as much as I hate him and them, I would pick Tim Tebow.
Don't say Tim Tebow. God dang it, don't say that.
Dude, he was unreal, dude. I mean, he
wasn't better than Cam Newton, though.
He had I don't know, dude.
He had a better career.
He had a better career, college football. If we're talking about college football players, he was a better college football player, I think, objectively.
I mean, he's the reason Cam didn't have a longer career.
Welcome to the Florida Gators podcast, everyone. I hope you're enjoying your time here.
Come on, you're the one who picked a Gators.
The listeners heard me say I hate him and them. So,
golly,
we're trying to be objective. So we're objective until you pick something Mac doesn't like, and then it's all ad hominem.
That's right. Actually, absolutely. That's how this works, buddy.
Mac's legitimately red right now.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
All right, I'm going to take it in a healthier, safer direction. I'll just. You're talking about Reggie Bush. I never really appreciated Reggie Bush because running back's kind of like my favorite position on the field. Like, I just love good ball running. And Adrian Peterson, I just loved watching Adrian Peterson run the ball. Ricky Williams was pretty close to that too. I thought God made these guys to run the football. So they were very delightful.
Yeah.
Those are good picks.
Yep. I think AP. The thing about Reggie Bush, I guess, is if you're like when you're doing the discussion between Cam Newton and Tim Tebow, to me, the similar argument between like Reggie Bush and Adrian Peterson. Like Reggie Bush is the Tim Tebow in this example,
I agree.
And Adrian Peterson would be the Cam Newton. It's like Adrian Peterson, I think would destroy Reggie Bush in like an Oklahoma drill, right? Like Reggie Bush, Adrian Peterson would run all over him, but at the end of the day, it's like Reggie Bush's career was better.
I think Reggie Bush was the better college quarterback or running back.
Yeah. But that's the personal thing for me. Like I never really was delighted watching Reggie Bush.
Yeah.
Because I like the guy who I thought could put his head down and get yardage when everybody in the stadium.
When I watched him, like obviously that's like I'm in high school and college, like during those years, and you're just watching every college football game. And I just thought he did things I never watched running backs do before, especially like out of the backfield, like catching the ball and stuff like that. Like
definitely.
I mean, when we got Alvin Kamara, I was like, he's like Reggie Bush. Like that's what I thought when we got him. So,
well, he may have been like the trend that gave us in the pros. Marshall Faulk, LaDainian Tomlinson, like these guys who are multi-threat, and that was the definition of the greatest running back.
Yeah,
I still just like the guy who puts his head down and runs the ball forward more. But
sure.
Big Jalen Hurd guy.
Actually, Jalen Hurd was on my running back list because I like
Jalen
that
Hurd's
guy.
great.
Yeah,
Jalen Hurd's great.
And he's going to be on our podcast.
Yes, he is. Welcome, Jalen. Anytime you want. The next question. Exactly. Please. The next question is, what's the greatest upset that you've ever watched? I'll go first. On this one, I think this is obvious for most college football fans, and that's Appalachian State over Michigan. That was, what was that, 2004, 2005, something like that?
Did you watch that bell to bell?
I just remember watching the back end of it.
I think that was 2007. I think I graduated high school that year.
Okay.
But I didn't watch that game. That to me, that's objectively the greatest college football upset ever. But I didn't watch that game. I just watched the highlights.
I just remember tuning in for the end of it, and my dad being like, "Appalachian State's about to beat Michigan," and me thinking like, "Who the heck is Appalachian State?" You know.
Yeah, the reason I ask is because that's one of the first times I can remember getting a text to turn on a sports thing. Like that eventually became a deal with Steph Curry. When Steph Curry would go on a heater, your friends would text you and be like, turn the game on, But I think that might have been the first where I got a text and someone told me, turn this game on real quick. And I saw just the very end of it.
All right, that's Max. You got one, Jeff?
No, I don't have one at all. That one seems obvious because it may be it's like one of the greatest upsets in all of sports history.
Yeah.
I just don't have a list to fill out behind it. So go ahead.
Michigan. Sorry, I was just going to say Michigan was number 5 in that game too, which is crazy. Like they beat a top 5 team on the road.
Yeah, and
they were an FCS team.
Dude, they were like a 4 or 5 touchdown favorite in like 2007. Like that's just normal today, but like it's insane, dude. I mean. The Mountaineers. I knew well who they were because I didn't live there anymore, but I had lived near there, so it was crazy. The biggest upset to me that I ever saw, I watched the whole game, was Boise State over Oklahoma, 2007 Fiesta.
That was number 2 on my list.
Statue of Liberty, like that was one of those like, oh my gosh, like what's happening? Like it was crazy. So
that game was
Matt,
wild.
give me the rest of your list then, because I'm curious. I just don't have a list. But now that y'all mention them, I'm like, oh yeah.
Those were the 2 on my list. That was it. Now there's some Tennessee ones that's on there, but like the Tennessee ones are all personal anecdotes and not like objective. I think.
Jeff's is probably Georgia State over Tennessee.
Oh my god!
The upset that is most seared into my brain is Wyoming beating
Oh, dude.
Tennessee at homecoming.
Yeah, that was miserable.
That was awful.
When you say like, what's the greatest upset? It's like it's PTSD. I can go,
Mm-hmm.
I just, you watch the game with your jaw unhinged. Or I was listening. I can't remember exactly. I've got clips of the game in my memory, but I can't remember even how I consumed it. I just remember feeling like my couch turned into a black hole and everything got sucked into it.
Yeah.
Because so many things are over at that point.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's horrible. Yeah. The last one here for questions on college football, GOATS edition, is what's the greatest atmosphere that you've ever experienced? So I know this is, we're Tennessee fans. We've been to mostly only Tennessee games with some other games sprinkled in. Let's just do your favorite Tennessee game in terms of experience that you've actually been to. And then let's do one where if you've been to another game that you think was a great experience, mention that, but maybe the best experience that you saw on TV that you thought would be really good that's not Tennessee related. Um, I'll go first just because mine's obvious. 22 Bama again. Like, that's the best one I've ever experienced in person. The best one that I've ever experienced in person that's not Tennessee related would be the 2017 Alabama versus LSU. This is like a top 15 matchup. I got a ticket randomly from a dude that lived in my dorm in college, and we made the trip down Tuscaloosa and watched that game, and it was just that was at that time that was the biggest college football game I'd ever been to because Tennessee just hadn't played in that many big ones at that point in my life, and it was a pretty crazy atmosphere. So that's what I would say for mine.
Probably in person was the second half of the 2016 Tennessee Florida game.
Good pick.
First half was very quiet. Second half was incredibly rowdy.
Yeah. Weren't you at 2015 Oklahoma as well, Nick, or was it 2015 Georgia that you were at?
I don't think I was at either of those.
Oh, okay. I thought you were at a 2015 game.
No, I mean I've gone to a game every year as long as I can remember, but I don't think I was at either one of those games.
Oh, okay. I had a memory there, but I guess I misremembered it. So, Nick, for you, best atmosphere that you've ever experienced, like vicariously through TV or through someone else or a different game that you've been to?
Vicariously through TV. I mean, honestly, like probably just watching you enjoy 22. Bama was like one of the best things. Like, I love that every time your like your avatar pops up and like message and stuff, it's just you splayed out in the checkerboards with a cigar in your mouth. I'm like, that's the greatest picture any of my friends have, like, ever. It's so cool.
Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, that one was crazy. I mean, we were at the beach. I mean, people in the complex where I was on vacation that fall thought that something bad had happened because I was just screaming and running and jumped in the pool and went to the beach, smoked a cigar. Like, people were going. It was crazy. That and knowing you were there, like, it was mind boggling. So.
Yeah, so 2004 Florida is
massive
for me.
Dude. Yeah.
And then what Nick is talking about, Mac, you on the field was part of it for me. Watching Nick go crazy was part of it. But even that campground we were at, you know how Tennesseans go to Florida and Floridians go to Gatlinburg, right? Like, that's just what we do.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember there was like a youth group there from Tennessee, and there was a Latino family staying right next door to Nick, and I was like hugging those guys and celebrating with these strangers that we'd never met.
Shout out to Naum.
Yeah, this was actually a different Latino.
Oh, I didn't know we had more than one.
Yeah. There's only one in our hearts, but these guys existed, and we became brothers in that moment.
That's awesome. That's awesome. What about, like, have you been to another game, Jeff, that you would say was like really good experience, or one that you saw on TV you thought looked like really good?
No, I mean, I would have probably went for the 2006 Rose Bowl.
Okay.
I just remember being deeply invested in that game. But anything better for me, or comparable, I guess, would be in basketball. I've just been to more basketball games.
Yeah.
Dude, honestly, like a really incredible atmosphere. This is probably a top 3 for me in Neyland. Was Georgia last year, even though we lost. Like, the stadium was amped up, and obviously because it went to the very end, Like it was amped up the entire time. Like I don't know if my throat hurt the whole week after that. Like I was just totally cooked, and that was I mean, it was obviously we lost, but it was an incredible game to watch.
Yeah, it was. It was. Yeah, I wish you could have got the ending that I got in 22 Bama, man.
Same.
It was awesome.
I wasn't rushing the field. Georgia doesn't deserve that. But.
No, they do not. They do not. All right, boys. Well, that was great. Let's move on to the SEC Gauntlet. Tonight, we are discussing the Georgia schedule and the Kentucky schedule. Georgia is over and under 9.5 wins for this season. Kentucky is over under is 4.5 wins for this season. We'll start with Georgia. I'll run through their games real quick for you guys. Georgia plays.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Yeah, please do.
If we have previously picked games, obviously some of these schedules will overlap. Do you have any record of that so that can make that go so that I don't contradict myself? Because I'd like to be consistent, but I'll be afraid if I don't remember.
You can contradict yourself, though, because then you get to hedge yourself. So, like, there's a couple games that not tonight, but there's a couple games I have in mind where I might pick the opposite just so that way you know what I mean?
All right.
So I think I'm happy to tell you what you picked if you want to know as we go, but I don't
want to know.
Okay.
No, I don't want to know. Now I just want to shoot from the hip.
All right, let's do it. All right, Georgia's schedule. They play Tennessee State, Western Kentucky, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Vanderbilt, Alabama, Auburn, Florida, Ole Miss, Missouri, South Carolina, and Georgia Tech. That's Georgia's schedule this season.
Boy, what a murderer's row. Gosh.
Yeah, this is the second weakest schedule in the SEC behind Alabama. Shocker. So
I'm so shocked that Alabama and Georgia have the weakest schedules in this new SEC.
Yeah, it's amazing.
In this new 9-game schedule. Man, you would think that the SEC was trying to, I don't know, make sure that their two best teams historically are like getting into the playoff or something.
Anyways, in the first game of the season on September 5th, Georgia plays Tennessee State. I'm assuming that's 3 wins across the board. Okay.
When are we going to get to the point where it's not? I mean, that whole schedule. Anyway, go ahead.
No, yeah. I mean, yeah.
It's just so infuriating. I'm disproportionately angry now that I know their schedule.
Yeah. The following week, Georgia plays Western Kentucky at home. 3 wins?
Yep.
Okay. The following week, this is September 19th, Georgia goes on the road to Arkansas. Yeah, that's times 3. The week after that, Georgia hosts, in their first game of the season, Georgia hosts Oklahoma at home. Who you got in this one?
It's between the hedges. I mean, they're going to win.
Yeah, it's a win.
Yeah, between the hedges. If it was on the road, I think it would be a better.
I might think about it.
Yeah, I'm higher on Oklahoma than the average person this year, but I don't think they're going to win on the road. October 3rd, Georgia plays Vanderbilt at home. 3 wins? Yep. Okay. The next game
just getting angrier and angrier as we go through this.
I'm also just thinking about our schedule while we're going through this, and I'm like, I wanted to jump off of a high place.
Who is the guy who finally makes this decision? Because I want to find him and hold him accountable.
I think his name's Greg Sankey.
I'm going to treat him the way the left treats Amy Comey Barrett and intimidate him into making bad, decisions that benefit us.
I want him on a press conference fearing for his life.
Yeah, I do too.
The following week, Georgia goes on the road to Alabama.
See, I think Alabama's weak this year. I went real low on them. This is a W for me for Georgia.
It feels like Georgia will lose a game at some point. This is probably one. This is at Bryant-Denny.
At Bryant-Denny.
I'll say they lose. I'll say Georgia loses.
I'm also taking Georgia to lose this game. All right, so Jeff, you got the lone win there for Georgia. All right, so
let me just ask y'all: if you're looking at college football 27, what are the 3 positions Alabama is clearly better than what Georgia has?
26 or 27, just to clarify.
This year's, like the new one is called 27. So.
Oh, I see. Oh, I got you. You're talking about the video game. I missed that part.
I mean, I can't name them.
No.
I mean, I think it's close. I think that there's probably plenty that are a wash.
Sure.
And so I'm just giving it to Bama because I think Georgia will drop a game at some point, and it's in Bryant-Denny, and they've struggled there. So
Well, Bama probably has the better, at least like number one wide receiver, right? Ryan Williams is better than Georgia's best receiver.
Maybe. I mean, this is where my like anti-Alabama bias. But like Ryan Williams is super talented.
Yeah.
Is he better at coming through against Georgia's DBs than
He was last year?
Yeah, that's fair. Anyway, go ahead.
Forever 18. That's all I know. Like I'll always be 18.
I mean, well, this is the game last year, right? That solidified that for him. Like the Georgia game is where he made those defensive backs look like idiots. So it's like
that's fair. That's all fair. That's all fair. My bias is clearly present.
And I'm glad that you have that bias. That's why we're friends, But,
I mean, it's super possible Georgia wins that football game. So
yeah, absolutely. It's
not like it's a bad pick.
Yeah, I mean, here's the reality, guys. The over and under is 9.5. So it's like
are they going to be under 9.5? I mean, no.
Yeah, but like them going undefeated is very unlikely in today's.
I know, but I'm going to end up with them undefeated. That's the thing, because like I look at their schedule, and it's just cupcakes. I mean, I get what you're saying about being on the road, but because I think Bama's not as good.
And to be clear, this Bama game is the week after Oklahoma.
Yeah,
after Vanderbilt, it's Oklahoma, Vanderbilt, Bama.
They can't even play two good teams back to back.
Exactly. Like they get a pass game. Anyway, I'll shut up.
All right, let's go.
All right. The following week, on the third Saturday in October, Georgia plays Auburn at home. The oldest rivalry in SEC.
Indeed, it is, and Georgia will win.
This is the
Alex
one.
Golesh. He cannot beat Georgia in his first year between the hedges.
This is the one I most want to pick Georgia to lose.
Pick it, bro.
Do it.
No, you can't.
Go with your heart. Go with your heart.
Nah.
All right, that's 3 wins across the board for Georgia. They have a bye the next week, and then they host Florida at home. Which is this game still in Jacksonville? So it's technically like a neutral site, I assume.
I mean, I haven't heard that it's not going to be. It's always in Jacksonville. Biggest cocktail party in the world.
The world's largest outdoor cocktail party.
Whatever. Dumbest rivalry in the world. So stupid.
I have nothing clean to say about that. I'll probably get us kicked off YouTube.
Can we also get
I think
this
is the dumbest SEC rivalry, by the way.
Yeah. Can we get these games like in Gainesville and in Athens? Like, what the heck is this Jacksonville?
It's so
play
dumb.
These games on the road. Like, play these games on the road.
What is the cocktail thing? What is this?
It's because, the history of that is because obviously SEC games, there wasn't alcohol served. So by playing it in Jacksonville, they were serving alcohol.
No, I know.
Okay.
I know the history. I just think it's stupid.
Okay.
I mean, these guys are from Gainesville and Athens, and they're drinking cocktails. Like, even with the history, it's like, why isn't this the biggest outdoor kegger in the world?
Because it's too hot. You got to drink the ice drinks. Too hot.
No, never.
All right. The following, I'm assuming 3 wins across the board, for Georgia?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The next week, Georgia goes on the road to Ole Miss.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I'm going to pick Ole Miss. I hate Georgia.
Oh!
I'm going to join Nick.
Trinidad Chambliss, baby. Trinidad Chambliss. I've heard all the rave.
And Mac's going to take Georgia to win because he doesn't believe in Ole Miss.
Correct.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm down on Ole Miss this year, so.
Yeah, it's fine.
All right. The following week, Georgia hosts Missouri at home, the Fighting Tigers.
3 wins. 3 wins.
3 wins. All right. The next week, Georgia goes on the road to South Carolina.
Yet again.
3 wins.
Okay. And the last game of the season, Georgia plays Georgia Tech at home.
3 wins.
Jeff, win? Yeah?
Oh, yeah.
All right. So at the end of the day, we have Nick giving Georgia 2 losses. So, Nick, you're at 10-2. Jeff, you have Georgia winning 11 games. You have only 1 loss on the schedule. So that's 11-1 for Jeff. And Mac has Georgia also 11-1. So that is the over-under is 9.5. So the Volatile Podcast is here to tell you this is
It's a
bet your
lock.
house. Yeah, bet your house. This is a lock. Get that mortgage out and lay it on Georgia's over for this season. Because even
Actually,
if
don't do that because this isn't financial advice.
yeah, that's right. That's right. But yeah, I mean, even if they lose 2 games, like Nick predicted, which he wasn't obviously confident about, it was more of a heart thing.
Sure.
They still are hitting the over, which is
Correct.
pretty crazy.
It
Vegas
feels
clearly
like
knows
even
something that we
only
don't.
2 games, I can fathom them losing, and they probably won't lose either one of them. But if they do,
it feels like for them to lose a game on this schedule, there has to be an act of God.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
or like legitimately just like I would never wish this, but like all the right injuries to all the guys in all the right places, right? Like,
Well, that would be an act of God.
sure, yeah.
I might pray for it tonight.
Before we move on to Kentucky, I'm going to give a shout out to my boy Tommy. Tommy was looking forward to hearing our episode talking about Georgia because Tommy's a Georgia fan. Tommy, Georgia sucks. I hope you guys lose every game.
Yeah,
All
Hey,
right,
Tommy, get ready for a
Get wrecked,
blue one
Tommy.
year.
Nobody wants to hear that, Tommy. I hate those dogs, Tommy. Never forget the Hail Mary, Tommy.
We're moving on to Kentucky. This one's going to be, I think,
this will be
more
fun.
exciting. Kentucky's over and under win total is 4.5. I'm interested to see where we land on this.
Gosh.
The first game of the year.
That place is a dumpster fire, bro. I'm probably going under. I'm just going to go ahead and tell you.
Kentucky hosts Youngstown State for their. Oh, sorry. Let me go through the whole thing. I broke my mold here. So Kentucky's schedule reads as so: Youngstown State, Alabama, Texas A&M, University of South Alabama, South Carolina, LSU, Oklahoma, Vanderbilt, Tennessee, Florida, Missouri, and Louisville. So that's Kentucky's schedule.
So they got Oklahoma and Alabama back to back. Then they get LSU and Oklahoma back to back.
They get Bama A&M back to back, and then LSU Oklahoma back to back. Yeah,
they are trying to kill the program.
Yeah.
They're not going to be good.
All right. Here we go. Let's get into it. Youngstown State, Kentucky hosts them in the first game of the season. Wins across the board for the Wildcats.
No matter, but yeah, they pull out the win.
All right.
I'm going to say win, but I won't be shocked if they lose that football game.
They're going to beat Youngstown State, Nicholas. Come on now.
Okay. All right.
The following week, Kentucky hosts Alabama at home. This is the battle for Bear Bryant.
Bad L.
All right. Losses across the board. The following week, Kentucky goes on the road to Texas A&M.
Fat L.
Okay. Jeff, you're on board with that pick?
Yeah, dude. And at that point, the A&M thing may be like a horror movie. It really might be just bodies all over the place.
Yep. All right. The following week, Kentucky hosts South Alabama in Lexington. Wins?
Sure.
South Alabama was pretty good last year. So
what's Kentucky's new coach's name?
Will Stein.
Can you just imagine being Will Stein? Like, man, I made it to the SEC.
Hope we beat South Alabama this year.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, hey, this is an interesting one. The following week, this is the first weekend in October. Kentucky goes on the road to South Carolina.
That's not interesting. Fat L.
The Cancer Bowl.
Fat L from Nick. Jeff?
Yeah, actually, I think so. I'm not a big South Carolina believer this year.
So you think Kentucky is going to lose, but you're not a South. Okay. This one's tough for me because I don't think South Carolina is going to be good. I just think this is a game that Shane Beamer has to win. So I'm going to go with Kentucky to win. So that's I'm going to go with Kentucky to lose, which is losses across the board. All right. The following week, Kentucky hosts LSU at home. Who you got in this one, guys?
Fat L.
They're going to put the L in LSU.
All right. The following week, Kentucky goes on the road to Oklahoma. Okay, that's 3 losses. If you're for podcasters, this is not great content, but everyone's just shaking their head in disbelief at how many games Kentucky's going to lose. That's what's happening right now.
So is the bye week then?
Nope. Then they play Vanderbilt at home.
They're going to lose.
Yeah, they're probably going to lose to Vanderbilt.
I got them winning this one.
That will be Vanderbilt's young quarterback's game where everybody's like, hey, he finally showed the,
Yeah.
like he's hitting the stride.
Dude, they're
Yeah.
not even going to be able to field a team after the previous weeks.
Yeah, maybe so. I'm taking
That'll be
Kentucky to win.
Vandy's get right game.
I'm taking Kentucky to win. All right, that's when the bye week falls, and then
All right,
after
hold
the
up,
bye week,
hold up.
oh,
To call back to earlier, that bye week is going to be the world's largest indoor kegger at Will Stein's house as he tries to destroy his memory of everything that had led him up to this point.
and Jeff, as much as I would be inclined to agree with you on that point, here's why you're wrong. I'm going to tell you why you're wrong. You're wrong because Kentucky has a bye week, as you just mentioned, and the following week they travel to Neyland Stadium, and so Will Stein is going to be doing everything he can to beat the Volunteers on the road. And what do you guys think is going to happen in that game?
I think he's going to have a near Keith Whitley level breakdown.
Fat
Okay.
L.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, this is not bullish on Tennessee this year. This is one of the ones we should be able to write in.
Kentucky on a bye week.
Their coach is going to be drinking hairspray.
Where's the football game, Mac?
It's in Neyland Stadium.
That's all I needed to hear.
Or Neyland Field if you're Jeff. I'm taking Tennessee to win this game. So that's losses across the board for Kentucky. The following week, Kentucky hosts Florida at home.
This one's interesting because they always have Florida's number, and Florida might be bad.
And
I hate Florida. Kentucky wins.
Jeff?
Before I answer, who's Tennessee's pitcher with the brother?
I still haven't thought of it.
Get off my back about Neyland Field. You know more about baseball than anybody I know. Yeah, I'm just for fun because I hate Florida. I'm going to say Kentucky wins.
Yeah, do it, Mac.
Gosh. I took Florida to win against conventional wisdom on the other side of this when we picked Florida's schedule.
Do you know what I did?
Yeah, I can tell you. Jeff, you picked Kentucky to win. Or sorry, no, Florida. Where is that? Oh yeah, you picked Florida to win in that game.
Okay.
So yeah. You
It's
picked
Ben
Florida to win.
Joyce.
Ben Joyce, that's who it is. Ben
Good
Joyce.
job, Nick.
Good job, Nick. I could not think of it. I deserve the shame. All right, I'm gonna hedge myself here, and I'm gonna take Kentucky to win on this side of it. So that's wins across the board for the Wildcats. All right, Missouri. Kentucky goes on the road to Missouri the following week.
I mean, I feel like these are the games that Eli builds his reputation on. He just beats up on the weaker sisters. So this isn't help.
I know.
I'm on the same page there. And this is maybe obviously probably the one we know the least about. Kentucky hosts Louisville in the last game of the season.
I don't know anything about Louisville. But
their coach is Jeff Brom.
Yeah, that's true. He's been there a while. And they're playing him at home.
Street fight between the whistles. Street fight between the whistles.
Kentucky?
Not really. Kroger Field is not a very hostile environment.
No, it's horrible. I've been there, and in the pregame, they were playing horse racing on the Jumbotron.
And in this game, they're going to be. You got a bunch of horse racing fans there, Louisville and Kentucky.
The only thing about as pathetic is Missouri.
This game's in November. They're going to be watching basketball, bud. They're going to be tuned into basketball. Both these programs.
Yeah, I did a wedding recently in Kentucky, and I was kind of cruising around the tables asking them what they were thinking about their basketball coach because I was like energy vampire feeding off of it, And an older man who is not – he's older than your dad, Mac, probably older than your dad, Nick, but not a ton. He said when he was in school, a lot of the high schools didn't have football programs like around them.
Really?
I believe it, but that's crazy.
Kind of shocked me.
Yeah.
May it be so again.
Kentucky's a basketball school, man. They just suck at basketball when they play Tennessee, apparently.
Here, here.
Right.
So what we got, fellas?
They're going to lose.
Kentucky.
They're going to lose.
Jeff?
Yeah, I'll go with program stability. I've leaned on that a lot, and I'm going to go with Louisville for the W.
I'm also taking Louisville to win this game. All right, so the final tallies here. Jeff, you have Kentucky's final record being 3-9. Nick, you have Kentucky's final record being 3-9. And I am one game to the better of you guys in that. I have Kentucky going 4-8. All three of which are under the 4.5 win
Smash
total.
the under on Kentucky.
There you have it.
Couldn't happen to a better program.
Well, it could. It could happen to Alabama or Florida, but
Yeah, but I mean, could it though?
no, probably not.
What would be
It could happen to
for them?
Florida.
Yeah,
Florida's,
Jeff, you
Florida's
have Florida
lows
at
have been that
3-9.
low.
Yeah. Sorry, I was thinking Alabama and Georgia. Yeah,
then
maybe
no.
it will happen to Florida.
That'd be nice.
Please, dear Lord.
No, it feels like Alabama and Georgia's floor is 8-4 until Jesus comes back.
Yeah. So, Nick, just because you weren't here last week, I want you to shoot from the hip here. I'm going to run through these schedules, and I just want you to give me a record, okay?
Okay.
So the first one is Auburn. Here's their schedule. I'll read it to you. Baylor, this game is in Atlanta. Just that's a note. So,
Okay.
Baylor, Southern Miss, Florida, Vanderbilt, Tennessee, Georgia, LSU, Ole Miss, Arkansas, Mississippi State, Samford, and Alabama. Auburn's over-under win total, Nicholas, is 6.5. What you got?
Over.
So you got, what, 7-5, 8-4? What are you thinking?
7-5.
Okay. Nick, Jeff and I had him at 8-4, so you're in good company there on the over. Here's Florida's schedule. Their over and under win total for Florida is at 7.5, so one game better than Auburn, Nick.
Free money.
Florida's
money.
schedule is Florida Atlantic, Campbell, Auburn, Ole Miss, Missouri, South Carolina, Texas, Georgia, Oklahoma, Kentucky, Vanderbilt, and Florida State.
Under. Way under. How is
free
that line
money.
that high?
What do you think? How many games?
5?
5 and 7 from Nick. That's right in the middle of Jeff and I. I had Florida at 6-6. Jeff had Florida at 3-9. So yeah, we both were on the over for Auburn and on the under for Florida.
Crazy behavior from Vegas. What do they know that I don't? I mean, many
Does
things.
that move when money comes in? Like, do they
Yeah, it
adjust
can.
with the way they do spreads?
It doesn't move as volatilely, obviously, as the spreads do, but they can move. Like, for example, recent and personal example, Tennessee's over and under win total in the spring of 2025 was at 9.5, and then when Nico left, it moved to 8.5 almost immediately. So,
Yeah. If somebody's wanting to bet and they can get the odds or the over under that Mac just read off, I don't know why you don't. Again, no financial advice, but I'm just saying, if you are a gambler, why don't you bet the mortgage on the under?
yeah, I don't know. I have bets on Auburn's over and Florida's under. I have bets on Georgia's over, and I have bets on Kentucky's under. So I had all these before we picked them. So I've been kind of in alignment with the podcast so far across the board, which probably means that we're all going to look like idiots and we're going to be wrong. So
Yeah, probably.
okay, so that's it for the SEC Gauntlet.
I hope we
Moving
look like idiots because we're low on our own team. So if we're idiots, then our team's going to be good.
No, Nick, we're not that dumb. We're just kind of dumb.
Well, we can't ever be dumb in a way that's beneficial.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Correct.
Exactly. All right, we're going to move on to our last segment of the night, which is our personal favorite segment, which is Rocky Top Roots. Nick, go ahead and tell us what we're talking about and let it fly, man.
We are talking
Nick,
about.
before you do, did you listen to the last episode?
No.
I was listening to it earlier today, and I got through most of it. Probably.
Okay.
And it was an hour and 40 minutes, so I've probably got like 25 minutes left or something like that.
All right. So I'm just curious. Any thoughts on the Morgan Wallen segment?
Oh,
See, that's the last segment, and I'm not through it yet.
Okay.
Yeah, but if the listeners are that long suffering, I'm happy to give some thoughts about that next week because I am very much enjoying the conversation that I'm hearing on there.
good.
So I'll end my interruption by saying Danny White sucks. And take us away, Nick.
Of course, goes without saying, but I love to hear it anyways. This week, Rocky Top Roots, we are talking about none other than my number one overall draft pick and that of the Indianapolis Colts, Peyton Manning. We are talking specifically about his recruitment this year because, of course, it was a shocking one. This is a story you can find out there. Pretty much I'd be shocked to find if there were any stones left to turn over on a story like this. But nevertheless, this is Tennessee lore, and it is part of our roots. And so we're going to start with, of course, Peyton Manning starring at Isidore Newman School in New Orleans, Louisiana. So his dad, Archie, traditionally from Mississippi, but grew up in Louisiana because his dad played for
The Saints.
New Orleans. Yeah, played for the Saints. And so so all the Manning brothers grew up in Louisiana. As a 3-year starter, he led the Greenies, the Isidore Newman Greenies, to a 34-5 record. He threw for over 7,000 yards, 92 touchdowns, and he rushed for 13 touchdowns in high school.
Yeah, he did.
I found that an incredible stat that I'd never read
Louisiana boy is slow.
a lot of naked boots. My guess is a lot of naked boots on the 1 yard line.
He was playing the private schools. That's what's happening. He's playing the private schools.
He was named the 1993 Gatorade Circle of Champions National Player of the Year, the Columbus Touchdown Club National Offensive Player of the Year, and of course his recruitment drew intense national attention, in which he got recruited by basically everybody. The number I found is roughly 60 colleges officially pursuing him.
Wow.
On one Sunday in August of 1993, entering his senior season, Peyton Manning fielded 23 phone calls from coaches in one day.
Wow.
And he actually logged each call in a notebook.
Of course he did.
That has been displayed at Saloon 16 in Knoxville at some point. The first call came at 11:05 a.m. from Arizona State quarterbacks coach Bobby Petrino.
Wow.
The last call came at 10:01 p.m. from Florida State's Mark Richt.
Wow.
Mark, you got to get on that, buddy.
These names are crazy.
Among the callers were Philip Fulmer of Tennessee, Steve Spurrier of Florida, of course. By average, the conversations lasted anywhere between 5-15 minutes. All the expectations, of course, early in the recruitment point towards Ole Miss. Archie Manning had been a legendary quarterback there. His older brother Cooper had played there before he had he had a diagnosis of something wrong with his spine. I don't remember the specific diagnosis, but it ended his playing career. And then, of course, this isn't part of the story technically, but Eli went on to play there. So he's the lone Manning to depart until his nephew. So Archie publicly stressed, once all of the hullabaloo started about his recruitment, that the choice belonged to Peyton. And he would say things, which actually I found this interesting for another reason, but he would say things in the press like, I love Ole Miss, but I love my son more, which is interesting because Peyton recently just said he loves his school, but he loves his nephew more. So that'd be the one time that he pulled for Texas. So it's a family thing, obviously. And he wanted Peyton to be happy, so he wanted it to be his choice. Ole Miss coach Billy Brewer actually drew a minor NCAA violation because he had all these public and effusive comments about how Peyton Manning was the best high school quarterback that he'd ever seen and someone that could have a historic impact on the school, and you can't comment publicly on players like that. So they actually, he was just kind of pretty much willing to tank the sanctions to get Peyton's name out there publicly, let him know he wanted him. So by all accounts, Peyton approached it, as you might imagine, meticulously and with maturity and allegedly with independence from his dad. Although his mother, Olivia, was quoted in a Sports Illustrated profile during the recruitment that she sensed that Tennessee stood out to him early on. So Archie actually speculated at one point on the record as well that Peyton might pick Michigan because of their coaching staff and having connections with the coaching staff. Tennessee head coach Philip Fulmer was deeply and personally involved throughout the entire recruitment of Peyton Manning. He participated in multiple phone conversations with Peyton. He's the one that made the in-home visit with Peyton in his residence in New Orleans, and he was joined by then offensive coordinator David Cutcliffe and quarterbacks coach Randy Sanders. Just saying those names is
I know. It stirs something in you.
It just does. It's deep in you. Peyton later said that he and Coach Fulmer hit it off, as did he and Cutcliffe, and apparently coaching relationship was a big part of what Peyton was looking for. By the time we get to the in-home visit, where Coach Fulmer goes to the in-home visit, the visit actually started off with some tension, which had been rooted in football history. So Philip Fulmer played against Archie Manning in college when Tennessee and Ole Miss had played each other back-to-back years, 69 and 70. And there was a linebacker named Steve Kiner, played for the Tennessee Vols. And leading up to the game, it had been said in the news that Archie Manning and the Rebels had all the horses. And Steve Kiner told the media all he saw was a bunch of mules. So, pretty famous.
Nice.
And Tennessee went on to win that game 31-0.
Yeah, they did. Say it again.
31-0.
Thank you.
The next year is actually known as the Mule Game because it was a revenge game, and Ole Miss beat Tennessee 38-0. So two whompings in a row, back and forth. But still, nevertheless, pretty good history.
Revisionist history.
So that was in 1969. Ole Miss had we won in 68. They won in 69. So there's a controversy over Steve Kiner being disrespectful to Archie Manning and the Rebels. So when Fulmer gets to the house, he encounters Olivia Manning, which is Archie's wife, for the first time. And instead of saying hello or offering coffee or anything, her first words to him were, "How well do you know Steve Kiner?" Which is a great greeting. And because Fulmer played with him and kind of helped him understand the playing field there. But over the course of the conversation, the visit was positive. Probably a lot of that was tongue in cheek. But Fulmer felt that the family had warmed to him, and obviously that seemed to be true. So Manning then takes his official visit to Knoxville around the weekend of Martin Luther King Jr. Day, so in January 1994, and there was a severe blizzard and an ice storm that paralyzed the whole city. This part's pretty infamous, but it was like the worst possible weather. I mean, how often, as you guys know, growing up in Tennessee, does that happen? That doesn't happen very often. So not very good for hosting a recruit from, Louisiana, I would say, especially when by that point it had pretty much boiled down to Tennessee and Florida. And so Florida obviously is warm and sunny. So Fulmer, according to, sources that were there at the time, was like beside himself that this was like just a horrible scenario. There's a specific guy named Carmen Tagano, who's an academic advisor that was helping with the recruitment. And based on Fulmer's conversations with the family, it was obvious that Peyton could pretty much go wherever he wanted, and that of the schools he was considering, his family had made it clear, and he had made it clear that academics were important, that he did want to get a degree, and that you can't bank everything on football because you can get hurt and various things. And it's not like modern football where there's insurance policies and NIL money. And so it was important to have a backup. They'd also seen this happen with Cooper. So I think that was probably an emphasis there. Like Cooper was going to be a player at Ole Miss, and he got hurt. And so Fulmer's insisting that they have a strong academic component to the visit. And Tagano is marooned at home in Sequoia Hills. And Fulmer sends a football trainer named Mike Rollo to go and pick her up and find her, despite the conditions. So Peyton couldn't get around to actually see Neyland Stadium fully due to the ice. But he had tons of interactions with the coaches while they were in. They were able to get students there, academic staff, and even some fans. and the visit left a strong impression. He later reflected that he could envision being happy at Tennessee, even if football didn't pan out. And so that was a big deal for him. Environment felt right, family feel. He really connected with the coaches. Also, something that's been noted was Heath Schuler was expected to turn pro. And so we've had some Heath Schuler talk tonight. So Heath Schuler was a legendary quarterback in his own right at Tennessee. He's expected to turn pro after the 93 season. And so the opportunity for early playing time was appealing as well. And obviously that happened. So Manning visited, again, third weekend, January 1994, took his official visit to Florida the following weekend. And coming out of those visits, it was clear that they were the top two schools. Tennessee actually secured, as a curveball into this whole thing, Tennessee actually secures a commitment from a highly regarded Texas quarterback that you've never heard of. I mean, you guys may have, but probably a lot of listeners haven't, named Brandon Stewart, shortly before Manning's announcement. And there was fear that it would deter Peyton, or that it meant that Peyton wasn't coming, that he was going to go to Florida or to Ole Miss. I mean, the Ole Miss talk never really stopped. But it didn't deter him. So to escape all of the scrutiny and the publicity and all the stuff that was coming down on him, Archie actually checked him and Peyton into a New Orleans hotel where they could just be away from everything. And he skipped a couple days of school, and he leaned towards Tennessee since the Knoxville visit, but he wanted to deliberate with his dad. And on January 25th, 1994, 8 days before signing day, Peyton Manning committed to the University of Tennessee. He announced it at Isidore Newman with a small ceremony. This is so funny to think about because Peyton Manning, but he actually signed alongside a female classmate that was picking a school for volleyball. So they both signed together, like at the same ceremony. Like you just envision that versus the way these things go today, where they're like, it's like a gender reveal party. It's
that girl has never lost a game of Two Truths and a Lie in her entire life.
That's so good, Mac. That's perfect. Oh man, he actually went to his 10 o'clock class after that. Like, he signed to go play for Tennessee and then went to his class, like the greatest quarterback of his generation. Everybody already knew it. It's just the most Peyton Manning thing ever. It's like so boring and meticulous. But he later said he felt like he actually could have been happy at several schools, but it ultimately came down to a gut feeling that, all things being equal, he had a gut feeling about Tennessee in his mind. And so the decision stunned many, particularly the Ole Miss fans who were very salty about it. The Mannings actually received copious amounts of angry phone calls and letters at home because and at Archie's office and at the high school where Peyton went. And Tennessee fans celebrated a massive program, recruiting win. The biggest recruiting reporter at that point that I can find is probably Jimmy Himes, which is funny because he's pretty irrelevant now as a sports guy. He kind of blew it with a wrong call on a coaching search a few years ago and hasn't been respected as much since. But he called it one of the biggest signings he'd ever covered for the Vols, and obviously that bore out to be true. And we all know the rest. Manning became a 4-year starter at Tennessee. He passed for over 11,000 yards, 89 touchdowns, won 39 of his 45 starts, earned almost every major award that you can earn, except for the one that doesn't matter anymore.
And the one he deserved the most.
The one he deserved the most, and led Tennessee to the 1997 SEC championship. And he did graduate in 3 years, and I thought it was worth noting that, of course, after his standout junior season, there's almost like a re-recruitment that happens. So after his standout junior season in 1996, the Vols went 9-2. He threw for over 3,200 yards. He finished 8th in Heisman voting that year. He was already projected as the number 1 overall pick in the 1997 NFL Draft, and he had a crossroads of whether to go to the NFL or to stay. And to help make the decision, he consulted lots of mentors. Famously, he went and had a long meeting with Pat Summitt that kind of spiraled into a lifelong friendship that they had, and talked to her for advice. And he ultimately chose to return for his senior season, honoring his commitment to his program and his teammates and his coaches. And he made the announcement public in March 1997. At Thompson Bowling Arena. And a very emotional event that I remember my father being very concerned about because he didn't know which way it was going to go. Like, is he having this meeting to say, I love you and I've had a great time and now I'm going to go to the NFL, or is he staying? And he was on Letterman. Like, I remember him being on Letterman that year, like before the announcement. And it was a huge deal. So in his senior season, he comes back. Vols go 10-1, and a dramatic SEC championship comeback win that Jeff probably remembers over the Auburn Tigers. He was the MVP, and a trip to the Orange Bowl. He won the Maxwell, Davey O'Brien, and Johnny Unitas Golden Arm Awards before he was selected number 1 overall by the Indianapolis Colts in the 1998 NFL Draft. It's a defining moment of loyalty and leadership to come back for his senior season and to win 10 games. And he's the greatest Tennessee Vols football player of all time.
I think I mentioned it previously, but my whole high school paused the academic day to watch his announcement.
Yeah.
I was in French class.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Oui.
Yeah, it's funny because I took French because it was either French or Spanish, and the prettiest teacher on faculty was a French teacher. You had to take it 2 years. So year 1, I have the prettiest teacher on the faculty, and then the next year she leaves. I think in part because coming in from a school fire drill, we caught her and one of the coaches making out in the hallway.
Oh.
And so she's gone, and the next year, probably the teacher that I had the worst relationship with replaces her.
Can I continue the lore? Is it not true that teacher lives not far from you?
Yes.
And she's now married to the coach that she was making out with. Is that not also
true?
No,
this is the second one. The one that
this is the second
French teacher.
Was she not also making out with one of the coaches?
This is the one that you dislike so much. She lives like not very far, right?
Yep. Yeah. And my kids point it out every time we go by.
Oh, that's hilarious. This is pre-Rate My Professor. This is why Rate My Professor was invented, Jeff.
How many chili peppers she going to get?
How many chili peppers, Jeff?
I actually don't know so I'm old. Is more chili peppers bad or less chili peppers?
More chili peppers is good.
Is very good.
It was based off of your physical attractiveness. It was not a good thing for college students to be doing, but everyone was doing it. So
yeah.
She
was probably an 8 chili pepper. Of course, you're a teenager, so
you can only have 5 chili peppers to be.
Yeah,
they would have reinvented the scale for Mademoiselle.
Wendy Peppercorn was your French teacher?
Do what?
I said Wendy Peppercorn was your French teacher?
You know, Coach Squints in the hallway.
Hey, you were talking about Ole Miss fans being blown away when you signed with Tennessee.
Yeah.
My battered ball syndrome is so bad that when you were walking through it, I was like, well, did he sign?
Wait, did we get him?
Yeah.
News report tomorrow that's like long lost letter of intent actually never signed by Peyton Manning. Tennessee vacates all their wins from 94 to 97.
Peyton shows up on ESPN wearing a Florida hat.
Oh my gosh. So here's a question.
Firearms.
Here's a question for you guys. Since I didn't really live this, I was curious, when you mentioned that Michigan was on Peyton's short list of teams that he was, seriously considering.
You think about Tom Brady?
No. Do you guys think that Peyton Manning would – let's just assume his career is basically identical at Michigan, but it's like at Michigan. Do you guys think that Peyton Manning would have had a better chance of winning the 97 Heisman Trophy over Charles Woodson had he played on the same team as Charles
100%.
Woodson?
There wouldn't have been the opportunity for the narrative to develop. Everybody been like, well, yeah, Woodson's good, but the guy in his same jersey is much more. It is more important.
Because when they're both on the same team, it would have been obvious that the position of quarterback is so much more important than any one defensive position.
Yep.
Well, and it was obvious at the time too. That's what you got to, it was crystal clear that ESPN didn't want to spend a Heisman story cycle with everybody knowing what was going to happen. So they just kind of spun Charles Woodson up. It was obvious at the time it was happening.
Yeah. And like, Charles Woodson's obviously elite. I mean, he's probably the greatest cornerback to ever play in college. Like, I'm not like, obviously he was very good, but like, you can never tell me that the best quarterback in college football is a less deserving player for the award that goes to the best football player than any cornerback ever. Like, the quarterback is so important that if you're the best quarterback, you're automatically on the Heisman list.
Yep.
Like, it doesn't even matter who you play for or what your abilities are or how good how good of an NFL prospect you are. Quarterback is so important that you're just automatically on the list. And Peyton Manning was not only automatically on the list, but he was deserving of the award because of all of his success on the field.
Not even a question. I mean,
Yeah.
it was the most obvious thing on the planet.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I didn't realize
And no
that he was
Tennessee
being
fan has respected that award since then.
no.
So.
I mean, so obviously that snub is like the biggest Heisman snub in Tennessee history. I don't know who Heath Schuler lost to. I don't know who Johnny Majors lost to. But the one that comes to mind for me, being a 30-year-old, is like Hendon Hooker not being invited to the ceremony was like the second biggest snub, in at least in my life. So is there was the Heath Schuler snub or the Johnny Major snub, is that even in the same realm of this Peyton Manning snub?
I didn't live the Heath Schuler snub. I was too young. I was alive technically, but
yeah, it wasn't on our radar. I don't know. It'd be fun to look up.
Yeah, because I'm curious, who won it, over him.
I don't even know, man. I'd have to look it up.
What I mean, would that have been like Tommy Frazier? Because if it's Tommy Frazier, then Tommy Frazier deserved it, obviously. But
looks like Nick's typing.
I'm working on it.
Well, Jeff, as the only person who really lived this in a formative time of your life, is there anything that you feel like needs to be said that wasn't said, just to helping especially younger listeners like myself grasp the? I mean, obviously the anecdote of you being in class and that stopping is good, but is there anything else like that you remember?
No, I mean that happened for no other athlete on any other. I was alive during Jordan's first retirement.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't stop class for Jordan to announce his retirement. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It was Peyton put a stop to Middle Tennessee academic day, and nobody. I didn't hear even the people who the kids who asked the teacher if they forgot to assign homework. Nobody balked.
Charlie Ward, quarterback from Florida State.
Florida State, yeah. Charlie Ward's very good.
And
New York Knickerbocker.
Johnny Majors was 56, I think. That's Paul Hornung, who was the quarterback from Notre Dame. Yeah. Checks out.
So at least both those
guys. This is why when we hired Josh Heupel, I was like, he probably belongs with us because he also was a Heisman runner-up. It's kind of our jam.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, but Heupel is the reason he's different than those guys is Heupel was on the best team, but he wasn't necessarily the best quarterback.
Sure.
Peyton Manning was the best quarterback on one of the best teams in the country. It's just crazy that he didn't win. I mean, Peyton
insane.
Manning in any other year ever would win the Heisman. It doesn't even you can put him in any year.
People will say when you're a Tennessee fan, they will say it's just because you're a Tennessee fan, but it is objectively the greatest Heisman snub ever, and maybe of all awards.
And your hypothesis there, Mac, doesn't. I mean, I'm not trying to criticize you.
No, please.
But this was purely a media creation.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, it could have spun up again because it was fabricated out of whole cloth.
Yeah.
I mean, the impact of ESPN on sports as a net negative has yet to be documented, but someday somebody is going to do a book on, are we sure this was good for the sport?
We need a 30 for 30 on ESPN.
Yeah.
No, I hear you. Yeah. Well, Nick, thanks for running through all that stuff, man. I mean, obviously 16 is it's the reason why you go to any Tennessee game or you go to really any Tennessee related event and you're going to see a number 16 jersey, at least somewhere. And there's a reason why it's the most iconic number in Tennessee history.
You had your 16 home team jersey on.
That's right. I got the road jersey on. That's all I could afford, but
that's all right.
All right, Nick, tell them where they can find us.
You can find us on YouTube, our YouTube channel, Volatile Podcast. You can find us on Spotify and Apple Music, where most podcasts are found. And you can find us on X at volatile_1998. And you can keep enjoying all of these fun segments and these Rocky Top roots and remembering good vibes and good times before the Rocky Top poops come in about a month and a half. So
just remember, unlike Peyton Manning's forehead, it's terminal.